All right, so we will get started today with our book club review of the Go Giver chapters 11 through 15. Allie, take it away. Steve, I guess we'll catch up with you when you unfreeze.
So we picked up this week with the chapter 11 called Gus. We find Joe back at work. He's feeling exhausted, and he admits that he also feels kind of foolish for going through this process with Pindar all week. And so Gus, on his way out of the office, comes in and sits down, and he's just kind of expressing just kind of how dumb and defeated he feels, Joe, through this process. And so and in doing that with Gus, he gets credit for doing his homework on authenticity, being authentic. And then it turns out Gus starts sharing a little of his background, and Joe figures out that Gus is the connector. And Gus tells him how much money he's worth, and Joe almost falls out of his chair. So he's like, why on earth are you still working? Like, what are you doing here? And Gus gives an answer we would all expect, which is that, I love what I do. I don't do it for the money, so I still come in every day. Have any of you discovered someone working around you or in your sphere or in a bubble that was kind of undercover like Gus?
Undercover? No, but I would say that I have people in my sphere who are at a point in their lives where working is not necessary anymore. I mean, I would say I've got a good number of humans that kind of fall in that category, but they still work. And if people knew what they were potentially worth, I think they would question, why are you not living life on a beach, for sure.
I have a handful of relatives and friends that are kind of like that as well. And I mean, my kind of question is usually, well, why? Like, for instance, one of them, flips houses on the regular well enough to take care of him and himself and his family, and works a full-time job. And you ask him why, he's just like, I like it. There's no reason not to. So.
Yeah, I got a buddy from church who he retired like a couple years ago, and he's got a woodworking thing that he does like in his basement. He's got like a bajillion tools and whatever. And man, he's busier now than he was before he retired. But he's like, house is paid off, everything's gravy. I mean, like you said, he could be sitting on the beach right now, but I've seen too many people when they retire, that's it. Man, they retire and they go sit on the beach somewhere. In 3 months, they're gone. So I don't know if that's quite the direction we're supposed to be going with this, but I think that's part of it is why, I mean, some people just love the thrill of like being in the game, and if you're in the business of the networking thing where you're helping people and you're, introducing people and serving people and taking care of people, I mean, that in itself is the payment. I mean, the money just flows from it. So I don't know. Some people that's the payment, is just being in the game like that.
So I think that's probably Laura. Would the rest of you actually retire? Do you have a number that would make you stop?
Not right now.
What's retire?
My number is 70. I'm not doing a whole lot past 70. So run and gun until we get to 70.
No. We're all living to 104 and dying on our 104th and one day birthday.
I'm 100. Mine's 107. Correction.
You're younger. You're younger than I am, so that just means you'll die closer to when I die.
Okay, fair enough. As long as we agree.
and I intend on working until then, because I agree with Steve.
LOL.
I think the people that find their niche, I think you end up having a longer, happy, healthier life.
Right. I couldn't see myself just not working. ever. I can see myself taking a break for an extended period of time, but just not like just stopping is weird, you know? It's like, what? There's no purpose.
So we'll move on. The next part of the book is about the law of receptivity. And so Joe kind of picks up from talking to Gus. He's trying to figure out almost kind of desperately who the Friday lunch guest is going to be. And so he shows up the next day at Pindar's house, and Rachel answers the door, and she says, I'm really sorry he's on a call. Have a seat. We'll get to lunch in a minute. And so as they're talking about coffee, he he accuses of Gus of being the guest, and it's not Gus. And in talking to Rachel, he's like, it's you, isn't it? And she's like, no, it's not me. Lunch is ready. She kind of was like, oh, go on the terrace. It's ready. I don't want to ruin it. And so, we catch Pindar and Joe having lunch together, and lunch is almost over when Joe realizes that it's almost over and the guest hasn't come yet. So, he's like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And Pindar admits that it was Joe. It's been Joe all along. And so they spend a lot of time kind of walking through, like, he makes Joe kind of come up with the answer for the last one. What do you think is the gist of all of this, and what would you call it? And so almost without thinking, Joe calls it the law of receptivity. And for Joe, that's one of the hardest things to grasp. And so Pindar kind of walks him through, like, all week, Joe has always thought of himself outside of the realm of all of the people he's met, out of all of the kindness and the giving and just the way it's presented to him. He accepts it as a really good idea, but he never really accepts himself within that role. And so, Pindar gives him an analogy that it's like breathing. If I told you that exhaling was healthier than inhaling, you couldn't possibly just inhale or exhale all the time and survive. It has to be reciprocal. You have to have both in balance to keep going. And so I think that kind of eases Joe a little bit, because he's still very much not greedy, but trying to figure out how he's going to get the money he needs or wants to achieve. And so Pindar kind of brings it back down into, like, what I'll call real terms. So, he says, having big dreams, being curious, and believing in yourself are all quantities of being receptive. And so they kind of talk about that for a little bit. But I want you guys to tell me, how does receptivity work in our industry? So, for example, throughout the process, Joe has to keep giving away. So he gives away business in the first chapter. He gives a referral. He gives, what else does he give away? I mean, he gives time to his wife, and he starts to see, like, small gains. So how does that, breathing in and out for us? What have you guys experienced small or large ways of giving and also receiving in our business?
Well, I
For
think
me,
oh, go ahead, Steve.
all right, you go first. Nope, you first.
You first, boys first.
You're both giving. Stop it. One of you receive going first.
All right, I'll receive. I've been in a networking group for the last, like, year and a half, and Am I there? Hit the send a voicemail button. Um, so I've been in a networking group for the last like year and a half, and like now things are kind of really rolling, not only in getting referrals from them, but to them. But it kind of feels like now that I've been doing this as long as I have, like I'm not just the realtor. If you hear somebody like give me a, send them my way, like we're building relationships. Like, I can honestly say like the life insurance lady that we work with, I can honestly say, like, I know this lady, like we have worked together, this and that, da, da, da. Like we're building relationships, and that just, it helps you go deeper, like when finding people. And at the end of the day, I mean, because if you help somebody buy a house, they're probably not ready to sell anything for another 8 years. So you almost have to give and give and give and give and give to help them out, introduce them to people, give them value, but before you get anything in return. I mean, it's 8 years, but you have to be to that, and it's taken me a long time to get used to it, but it just is what it is. If you have a big enough group of people you're working with, it all works out.
Well,
That's my thought.
and I think that
Lord, it's to you.
I think that's true in any sales industry and really in any industry. Somebody once kind of explained this concept to me with a closed fist based on an open fist, right? If your fist is closed and you don't ever give anything away, and it was a class teaching us to let go of some of the jobs, right? Learn how to use leverage, right? But if your fist is consistently closed and you hold on to these jobs and you hold on to these jobs and you hold on to all the information that you have, right? All the knowledge that you've learned. And I think you can apply this to what you're talking about, and more than just, learning to use leverage. But if you keep those fists nice and closed, nothing leaves it, which is great because you never lose anything. The problem is nothing else ever comes back in it. And so when you're able to open your fist, you're able to give, you're able to let things flow through your fingers. A lot of times what happens is what comes into your hands is a lot more than what you could ever hold, even with two hands. So then your ability to give back into the world gets greater, and your ability to catch the things that you're trying to capture and achieve your goals gets greater. And so, people ask me, that we talk about this all the time. What is your value proposition? What is your value proposition? What is your value proposition? I've listened to these fabulous agents come up with these fabulous value propositions that have words that I don't even understand what they mean in it. And I feel so uneducated and so not worthy and not up to where they are when I think about mine. But I think mine holds a whole lot more impact. My value proposition is just yes. What is your problem? We will help you figure out what that problem is, right? We help you figure out from beginning to end in the home buying and selling process, but it goes much deeper than that for us, right? And so we know doctors, we know attorneys, I know just about everybody in this area, or at least have a contact for almost every job in this area. And I'm consistently giving that out and consistently referring those people business. So when they think of agents, it's not just my clients that think of my team. It's those interviews that, those companies that we interview and we promote their business. We check in with those companies. How's your business doing? How can we, when we go shopping, we support those businesses. Hey, hadn't seen you in a while. Just in to buy, a pound of shrimp. Hadn't seen you in 2 months or whatever. And so I think when you learn that lesson and you understand it, I think you can really relate to how much it applies to life in every aspect. You can change that to parenting, right? You go help another parent get plugged into a school, or help another parent take care of something that their child needs help taken care of. I guarantee you on the back end, they're going to think about you when the time is right, whether it's for business or, oh, this parent said they needed XYZ. I can help them with that, or this person can help them with that. And I just think, when you use that open and closed hand analogy, it's super easy to think of and see. But it's very relevant in our business. I think it's very relevant in any sales business.
I like your visual a lot.
So I would say, as far as the law of receptivity in our industry, so I'll speak to like real estate investing, I guess. I guess kind of to Laura's point, the like open hand versus the closed hand, like, if you're staying closed, I guess that doesn't really leave anything open to actually receive, like what is it? I guess you know, once you've moved into the giving aspect, once you actually get something that's coming to you, actually just receiving it and kind of, being open to it. And then I guess also, making sure it's gonna work. So, yeah.
I liked when they were talking about being able and open to receiving that, you know, even if you become like Santa Claus, right? And you give everybody gifts. And someone is touched so deeply by what you gave them or what you did for them or however the giving comes across, and they in turn want to give something back to you. I like that he brought that up in the story. That who are you to deny someone else giving back to you? Like, it's almost like you'd have to be such an asshole to think you're the only one who can give and not have someone give something back to you just out of appreciation or love or however that comes back to you. So I love that they brought that up. I think it really, for me, it kind of solidified the whole idea.
So I kind of like the way he talked about it from the standpoint of, it's almost just going to happen anyway. Like it's so natural. He talked about it almost like it was just a natural flow. You know, if you're gonna give, like it's almost, to your point, it's crazy not to actually receive something. So it's like I guess that law of receiving. If you're closing it off, you are just really kind of.
Yeah. And you hear this example a lot in parenting. Like you'll hear parenting classes and parenting books. Kids a lot of times I think we disregard when a child gives us something. They may draw a picture and you're like, oh great, this is great. And then you don't spend that time to actually receive it. And on a child's face, when you stop, you can actually see the hurt. And when that child is giving you a rock or the flower they stole out of the neighbor's yard or the picture they colored, you can actually see the heartbreak when you don't receive it well. I think it's a lot more difficult to see the heartbreak, and the person giving may not even realize their heart's breaking, but internally it creates a negative emotion when you don't receive what someone is giving to you. And it stops them and it takes their joy away, which is like a double whammy as far as negative juju out into the world. And I think you get what you give back, right? If all you're ever willing to do is give, well, then the world is going to learn to only take.
I think it's a biblical principle too, that, I mean, the Lord is always giving and blessing you and everything, and wants you to go and bless others. And I mean, it's a biblical principle to also receive those blessings, because those are like y'all were saying, um, you know, those gifts that you're receiving. The actual reception of it is a gift in itself. Like for example, like I know like you get the congregations like that buy their priest a car or something like that. Like our priest, like he didn't want the car, but he's like, he knew he had to take it. So he said, it was like, all right, we're getting a less expensive car, a nice one, putting all that money, other money towards charity, but I'm gonna let you buy me a car. And he had to take that, but that's because everybody like brought all their dimes and whatever together to do that. So there's biblical principles there too.
So in the end of the story, it kind of goes full circle. We meet, it's cloaked for a little while, but we end up meeting Joe again, and he's in the position of, say, Gus or Pindar, where he's able to kind of be what's the word I'm looking for?
Mentor.
The authority, kind of be the authority in the situation and be, you know, not necessarily brokering a deal, but leading some kind of deal that he's been a part of. And so we find that Joe is helping Rachel with her coffee company. And that comes to him on the very last day, at the very last hour in his office when the quarter numbers are due. And, you know, he's sitting there beating himself up. You know, I've done all this work. I want to be a better person, but, you know, it's not putting food on my table. But I really very much want to be this new person, but I'm not eating. And so as he's sitting there kind of, you know, trying to sit with that almost, the phone rings and he gets a guy in desperation, right? You're the person who gave a referral, you know, I need, this is what I need. I've got a guy. We need help like right now. It's, you know, something fell apart with our pricing structure and we need super high quality, premium, high volume of coffee. And he almost laughs and he's like, I've got somebody for you. And so the last chapter picks up, you know, where he's already kind of rolling in that deal, looking for marketing. And so he invites one of the girls who submitted her work for a campaign into the office. And, you know, they tell her, you know, so you didn't get the fall campaign. And, you know, she says, thank you so much for telling me in person. Thanks for inviting me, you know, taking the time, even though it's a no. And he's like, well, don't get too upset. We have something else that we actually want you to take charge of. And so the end of the book finishes with the whole thing kind of going full circle. Joe is kind of representing a Pindar and his characteristics and the more gentle way he's speaking, and that nothing is really dog eat dog. She can either choose to accept it or not. She doesn't have to because she needs to eat, and that's just how you make money and make deals and da 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 da. So I guess that kind of leads me into like, where did you guys come out at the end? What was your takeaway? Are you a go-giver or are you a go-getter, or what are you? What
Well, for me, the end had kind of two big points. One that I think is important to bring to fruition when you're thinking and doing stuff like this, because I think a lot of times we tend to. Why are y'all laughing?
We can see Mazzy. She like comes and just stares at you.
She wants me. She. I'm glad she's not coming this way over the chair. We go through this about every hour. Mom, it's time to pet me and you need to pay attention to me and not whatever it is. But normally she comes over the side of my chair. So
what's that giving? I would love to receive my pets right now. Like
right. Exactly. But I think there's two things that kind of come full circle here. Not only does the book show that if you follow the system will work. And we learn consistently, no matter what book we read, that if you have a system, work through it because odds are it's going to work, right? But I think the second lesson here is a lot of times the system comes to fruition when you're finally totally broken down, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And I actually saw a thing today where it was different ways to learn how to make money, kind of. It was a meme or something. And there was somebody with a backhoe using a tool, a big manly tool, scooping out, and, you know, they quickly get to the gold. And then there's two people digging unilaterally through the ground, right? And the gold's this way. And both of them give up. And the goal is literally like one shovel dig in. Their path took a little longer and was a little harder, right? Their tunnel was much longer than the one that went straight down. But I think the point is, and I think something that we need to kind of read between the lines and know is you can't stop, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't work overnight. It's like losing weight. I put one bite of pizza in my mouth, I put on 10 pounds. If I eat healthy for 10 days, I lose 1 pound. Right. And so it's a consistent need to continue to do those things. and understanding, natural laws of habits. It takes 66 times repetitive to create a habit, and that it takes time for the world to catch up with what you're actually asking for. Because I feel like this is somewhat of a law of attraction type book, right? You put it out there, you receive it back. It's just a different way of explaining those type of principles, I guess. And so that was kind of my biggest takeaway was, one, don't forget that it doesn't happen overnight, right? And in this book, it happens in a week. He meets 5 people and he's, instantly setting up a massive company to sell more coffee than anyone ever thought they would sell. They're better than Starbucks in 5 days. I don't think that's reality. I think it takes longer than that. But that was kind of my biggest takeaways was, you've got to remember that the ball has to start rolling, and that just don't stop, right? These principles work, and anybody that you study who is successful, I don't care what definition, what label, whatever, the open hand is necessary. And I think that's the whole principle of the entire book. Having that hand open is so super necessary, and never even letting it close back even halfway, because when you do that, stuff starts to get caught. We lost Steve again.
I would say my biggest takeaway was it pays to be authentic.
Do you do that, or are you doing it, or will you do it?
Oh, being authentic?
Yeah.
I'm authentic all the way. It's probably to a fault.
Ooh, like Laura?
Oh man, that's why we work well together.
No BS.
No.
So
What was your biggest takeaway, Allie?
Yes, I like the way you put that you actually, like, for me, it was all metaphorical. It was this, like you said, law of attraction kind of universe. You put something in the universe, but that you actually grasped like a system. I like that. That's a big takeaway just from hearing you say that. So that's a really cool idea. You got like my wheels turning a little bit. But my biggest takeaway was in the chapter where he goes to the lady speaking, and not necessarily that she was literally a realtor, but that she hits so poignantly on the fact that we aren't selling real estate. We're not selling ourselves, but that's how you say you're selling yourself. And so I've seen those motivational posters or whatever, and it says value, but it's capital YOU. And so that's the visual I keep going back to from the book, is like, I am the value that's provided. And I think sometimes I get a little bit lost in like, I haven't been doing this that long compared to everyone else, and I don't always have all the answers, and I don't, I sometimes I get caught up in that. But the feedback I consistently got at Redfin was always like, wow, this is a great idea, or wow, no one ever like provided suggestions, or yeah, that would be doable. That could be, like just walking through a property and saying, well, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have that, it doesn't have that, and just saying little things like, could you do that in 5 years? Could you add that? Would you think about changing this space into something else? And so the feedback on my value is always like, wow, thank you. So that's my biggest takeaway, is that just continuing that, being me will bring whatever people are excited about from me, will bring that back to me. And someday I'll start making money with it. But yeah, that was my takeaway.
Well, I think that's a good point though, because I tell people that are in here talking to my leads, people ask, oh my gosh, Allie called this person yesterday. And I'm like, great, call them today. Well, she talked to them yesterday. Maybe they don't like her. right? People work with people they know, like, and trust. And I think a lot of times when you're pushing stuff out there, right, you're trying to be a giver, you're trying to work that system where you are providing value. It's easy to get bogged down in the, but I gave them a lender, I sent them some properties, I did provide value, and they didn't respond to me, but they responded to someone else. And I think a lot of times we feel defeated instead of thankful that the universe realized that that human would be better serviced over here than here, and we get stuck here. And that's where our hand starts to kind of close back up, right? I mean, there's people that I've talked to that like will never talk to anybody else. And there's people that I've talked to that don't ever want to talk to me again. And that's all okay, right? Like, it's legit all okay. I am okay with not wasting my time on those people. And I think when you are your authentic self, the universe, God, I don't care what you want to call it, brings those things back to fruition, and you do get what you deserve, and you do get what you put out there. You just have to be willing to listen and to kind of receive. You know, when you get angry about not receiving this client, it blocks you from receiving this client because you're not receptive at that moment. You're not receptive to receive anything, instead of just moving past the negative and continuing on the positive.
I love it.
This was a good book, by the way. I did enjoy it.
It was.
I actually listened to the last one. That was her head, if you heard that.
LOL. Did she
I'm so
bump it again?
Well, she's trying to make me play with her blanket now, is what she's doing. And so she's under the desk. So yeah.
She's gonna have high expectations for you now.
But she's staring at my foot. I don't know why. Now she looks like she's about to bite it. I don't know. Anyway, was there any other talking points on this particular book? I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I actually listened to the last chapters twice.
Ooh. I don't think so. I'm over here critiquing myself. I was very literal in my hosting of it. Like, okay, here's the recap.
You did great.
So I'm excited to, like, okay, it's somebody else's turn again. I can watch 3 more people lead it in a more casual way. So.
LOL. I honestly feel the same way.
Oh, I thought you did good.
So funny. Leading these books are awesome. It's fun.
No, I mean it is, but I also want my breaks. Shit.
I don't want to be on point. So I don't remember. We have 3 minutes. Sorry, I can't see. I think we have about 4 minutes left before the timer goes off. I don't remember the name of the book, and I haven't downloaded the one that Steve wants to read. Do either of you have that?
It's the
Is it
Tribes?
Tribes by Seth Godin.
Oh yeah, that's Seth guy. That's what he likes. Okay. Is it this?
Girl, I cannot see this.
I know, I got like a glare. How's that? I don't know what the hell's going on here. Tribes.
Oh, that's what I see.
That's what comes up when I Google it.
It's got a bunch of people in a circle walking around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm buying, confirm.
Buying it.
Well, I have a credit.
I'm signing into like 3 library apps, and I'm like, oh, if they don't have it, I'm gonna have to actually go get a card here in Atlanta.
That's so funny. No, so I have an Audible account, and every month I get a credit.
Oh yeah.
So it costs me $15 to have an Audible account, but then I get a free book. And I just like Audible.
It works perfectly for the book club.
It does.
It's like, oh snap, what book's next? Okay, I'll buy it now.
Yeah. So it looks like no, don't start talking. Opening credits is 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Long strange trip. Tribes used to be local. I don't know where the chapters actually start. Can either of you figure that out?
Hold on, it's got download.
These chapters are all like very, very, very short. Some of them are 30 seconds. Okay, 3.
Oops.
There's a lot of
This is an app. I haven't used this app. Where's my book? There it is. Back. I cannot see the like a breakdown in this app.
Yeah,
It
it's
just
very
tells me
weird.
if you wanna
So
read it,
I've got too much of a breakdown.
that's what I'm thinking. And we've got less than a minute to figure it out. So let's put it this way. If you're listening, try to get through the first hour. Allie, are you listening?
yes, yeah.
Okay. Let's have a goal of getting through the first hour. I like to try to have about an hour. That gives us about, 15, 20 minutes, 5 days a week to get through the books. So let's just plan on getting through the first hour-ish.
Cool.
And then we'll let Steve dictate after the next meeting what title he wants us to read through. Because it's only 3 hours and 42 minutes. So that's about a 4-week discussion time if we go about an hour a week. Does that work?
That works for me.
We're
Perfect.
going back
Okay.
to Tuesday at 1.
Yeah, we'll go back to Tuesday at 1. That should work. I'll confirm with everybody via text.